Welcome to the course Environmental Impact Assessments. In this session, we will cover noise in our larger ambit of where we are looking at the law, policy, and institutional arrangements for EIA system. So our coverage will include that we are going to look at the international level legislation, guidance, and standards in these areas, and then we'll look at the standards and guidelines for measuring and assessing noise and vibration, like which all are available, and then we'll look at the national noise level policy and guidelines in context of India. So accordingly, our learning outcome, expected learning outcome would be that you should be able to list the international level legislations, guidance and standards which are available. You should be able to identify various standards and guidelines for measuring and assessing noise and vibration. So you should be able to tell which all standards and guidelines are there for what purpose, and then you should be able to identify national noise level policy and guidelines and connect all these to the EIA process. So looking at the international noise level policy and guidelines. So when we deal with noise assessments, when we are dealing with it, so the regulation vary a lot, and there might be a lot of variations from place to place, from country to country. Therefore, it's advisable that the environmental authorities are consulted very early in the stage, at the scoping stage, for the purpose of EIA, so that whether it has to be included, not included, what should really come in this. So generally, you would see that the policy and legislation concerning noise include that are regarding the standards for noise levels. So what would be the maximum noise level for those? The standards are prescribed. So that's usually what you'll find. That standard you'll usually find in all the places, most of the places. For example, you have European directive relating to the permissible sound level from vehicle exhaust system, or you would also find example of US federal emission standards set up by the Noise Control Act of 1972. So these standards are theirs, which are very general standards, and you would find them in many places. And there's another approach which is also taken apart from the standard for the maximum level. You would also find that countries can maintain or manage overall environmental noise level as per the health impact. So they would not really set up the maximum level, but they would look at the overall environmental noise level. For example, in Europe, directive, you see that the environmental noise directive is there, and through that it is required that countries prepare noise map, and especially in the areas which are densely populated, or areas near the major transport projects, or if there are plans to introduce certain new projects. So there all the noise maps have to be prepared, and there would be also designated areas which would be identified as the quiet areas, and then it would be certain kind of projects would be avoided in those areas. So this approach of mapping and maintaining the noise level is also used. So and in this they do not specify the quantitative levels, rather a generalized environment is maintained. So you would also find World Health Organization WHO guidelines for community noise, and which especially WHO gives noise level based on the health parameters. You can see different environment like given in the guideline, and you can look at the critical health noise level, and you can see all the measurements are given in decibel. Decibel is the relative loudness of sound in an air as perceived by the human ear. So that is how it is, that's the unit, and that's what level are prescribed here. So the guidelines also recommend internal and external noise levels that will prevent detrimental effect on a community, including rest, sleep, and work that requires concentration, among others. So you see how different for different activities also it's been determined. And now looking at different standards and guidelines for measuring and assessing noise and vibration. So you see that you have international standards like ISO 1996 to 2007. So here you see this is meant for the purpose of like it provides procedures for determining sound pressure levels by direct measurements. Then you also can do extrapolation of measurements, and you undertake calculations or by the completely you can take it through calculations, and it also provides recommendations for preferable conditions for measurements or calculations and so on. So this particular international standard can be used for this purpose. Then you also see another international standard, ISO 9613 1996, so which is related with acoustics, attenuations of sound. So you see that it provides algorithms for prediction of noise levels in community from sound emission sources. So all these standards can, all these algorithms can be used. And then you also see International Institute of Noise Control Engineering 2011 also provides a guidelines for community noise impact assessment and mitigation. So this is provided, and this gives you a non-technical guidance, especially aimed at policy for the policy makers, which are involved in noise regulations and control through EIA process. So this guideline is also available. This primarily focuses on the broad approach to undertaking noise impact assessment. So how you can really do that assessment. And it also provides information on the dose response relationship and how the land use planning can be taken care of to control more exposure to the noise. You also see the World Health Organization guideline, which also gives additional information on the health effects of the night noise. So what could really happen. And then you also see Association of Noise Consultants 2012. They provide measurements and assessment of ground-borne noise and vibrations. So this is practical guidance with the particular attention paid to the railway vibration, ground-borne noise, and it also provides advice on how to overcome these problems and what could be the mitigation strategies for this. You also find British standards, which is like code of practice for noise and vibration control on construction and open sites. So this is also available, and in this they have many parts, and then these parts provides methodology for calculating noise levels generated for a range of common construction plant, like those which are construction work which are both fixed or mobile. So it provides that. Further you see part 2, another part provides guidance on measuring vibrations, including what kind of procedures have to be used for estimation of vibration and so on. So that all is provided in this British standard, which can be used for noise estimations, impact assessment. Then you also see Environmental Protection Authority EPA Western Australia also giving environmental assessment guidelines, consideration of environmental impact assessment from the noise perspective. So they also come up with a guideline. So this particular guidelines assessed the project proponents to find out whether the noise emissions may cause significant impact or not. So these guidelines are available, and they explain how potential noise impacts are considered, in the environmental protection by the Environmental Protection Authority, and how these assessment has to be done within the EIA process. So all that guidelines are provided to undertake the study. And we see another, which is like Environmental Protection Department, Hong Kong, which gives EIA ordinance. So it provides the EIA ordinance, which gives the technical memorandum and guidelines for noise assessment. So noise assessment can be done through this. It also gives assessments of noise impacts and different kind of impacts which might happen because of the nature of the project. So all those things are provided here. For the industrial and commercial sound, how you're going to rate it and how you're going to assess the noise level and the impact is given by British standard. So this standard provides guidance on how to monitor, how to undertake assessment for industrial and commercial purpose. It also gives you the methodology for this and then the criteria for how this can be done, and how these existing sound sources can be taken care of by comparing the operational sound. The British standard gives guidance on the monitoring and assessment, and it also provides you the methodology and also provides you the criteria for assessing the impact. So you also find another British standards for guidance on sound, insulation and noise reduction for buildings. So in this, it provides the guidance for control of noise in and around the building, how the noise has to be, how you can control those noise, and then these guidance are applicable to the new buildings and then also the refurbished buildings which are undergoing changes. And it also provides indicative internal and external guidelines for the noise values which have to be maintained, and the design environment which has to be maintained in this. You also see British Standard of 2008, which provides you the guide to evaluation of human exposure of vibration in buildings. So what really happens to the exposure? So it gives you guidance on the magnitude of vibration as per the dose value at which the adverse impact would arise. So those things are provided here. Further, you can see another British standard of 1993. So that gives you evaluation and measurement for vibrations in buildings. So it gives you the guidance on the levels of vibration, and then what kind of cosmetic damage is likely to occur within the building. Then also you see Environment Agency 2004. It provides you horizontal guidance for noise assessment control. So it provides basic noise theory and describes the principles of noise measurement and prediction, and how you can control it through design, operations and management. And then it also gives you different techniques and another technologies for reducing it. You also see Department for Transport and Wells Office, like it gives you the calculation of road traffic noise. So it helps you to calculate that. So it gives procedure for calculating road traffic as well as noise levels. It also gives you incorporating factors including traffic volume, what factors have to be included, how what compositions one has to look into, the speed and all these considerations, road gradient, road surface, how these factors have to be taken into consideration. So all those is given in this particular guidance. Then you also see Highway Agency, which provides you design manual for roads and bridges. So it describes the procedure for assessing effects of road traffic, and then how you can use noise descriptors based upon the statistical noise levels. So it gives you guidance on that. So all of these can be referred to while you do that, and more we'll see when we do the methods section. So these are the standards, range of standards and guides you see. We also find International Finance Corporation, which provides we have been seeing that how IFC has been giving standards for several aspects. So you see it also provides for the noise level. So they have performance standards. It gives you the international benchmark for environment and social risk management, and it has specific reference to noise in its performance standards 1, 2, 3, and 6. Then also we see 1.7 of IFC also gives consideration on environmental health and safety aspect, EHS guidelines. So that also provides information on noise assessment and management, including absolute noise level limits. So this is also available to help with like how to go about the assessment process. So these guidance is useful for operational noise impact in particular, uh, and like measuring it during the function of the project, as it provides reference for the stationary noise sources. So what IFC provides is much more useful for the operational noise impact compared to the mobile noise impact, because it provides references from the stationary noise source. So you cannot really use for the mobile purpose. So you cannot use it when you are dealing with transport or mobile noise sources. You are measuring for mobile noise sources. Furthermore, we find, which is also very useful for EIA purpose, is the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment IEAMA guidelines for environmental noise impact assessment. So they have specific guideline for undertaking environmental noise impact assessment. In the snip of the guidelines, you can see here that it provides advice on how to do the noise assessment at the scoping level. Then it also helps you to baseline noise environments. Then also how you can do predict changes in the noise level because of the development, and then how you would really evaluate the entire impact and how you would evaluate the significance of the impact it would have. So all that is provided here. It also advised to include sensitivity of the receptor, and then the frequency and duration of noise sources and the time of the day. You will study more in the methods section. So now looking at the national level policy and guidance. There are many statutory provisions related to noise pollution in our country, and these provisions are spread across various laws. It's just not just one law, but across the laws, like you have studied primary and secondary laws which are there, policies which are there. So it is spread across various laws and amendments, and various statutory provisions which we can see are like you have one is Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, which grants the right to life to the citizen of India. So through this, through the Supreme Court pronouncement, it has been made clear that right to life doesn't just mean mere existence or survival of a person, but it also addresses to the quality of life, dignity, right to a better life. So under that article, it is also it is covered primarily under Constitution of India. And so any person who faces problem due to noise pollution, it disrupts the person's peace and comfort, then it means the noise pollution is violating person's right to life. So that also you see. Then you also see the Code of Criminal Procedure. So you have section 133 of Code of Criminal Procedure, which empowers the executive magistrate, district magistrate, or subdivisional magistrate to conditionally remove something that is causing a nuisance. So that's there. Then you also see Indian Penal Code chapter 14 deals with certain offences. Such offences can be any action that affects public health and safety. We will see that numerous section 268, 287, 288, 290, 294, they deal with noise pollution. So there's also law of torts. Noise pollution can be included under the offence of nuisance under the law of torts. any person who is facing any issue due to such noise pollution can file a civil suit to claim damages. So you need to see that how these um, things can impact your assessment procedure or your legal status of your assessment or the running of your project. As well as you see that there is also Motor Vehicle Act, which puts the guidelines related with the vehicles and honking and all those things. And you also find noise pollution control under the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. So this provision of criminal procedure code has can also be invoked to prevent pollution of almost all kind, including noise pollution. So we see Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981. This Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act originally had air as main concern, air pollution as a main concern, but it was in 1987 the problem was noise was also covered within the definition of air pollution. So noise pollution can be controlled under various provisions of this act. So there are several provisions which are made, and CPCB takes care of and develops the standards in this regard to how to prevent it and how to manage it. We see that Environmental Protection Act 1986 and the Environmental Protection Rules of 1986, within this also Section 6 of the Act empowers the government to make rules to regulate environmental pollution. So under this section, the central government makes rules providing the maximum allowable limits of concentration of various environmental pollutants, including noise pollution in different areas. So according to that, central government has enacted Environmental Protection Rule, which provides maximum allowable limits of various environmental pollutants, including noise. So looking at Noise Pollution Control Rule 2000. So this is under the Environmental Protection Act 1986. So the Noise Pollution Control Rule was amended in year 2000 by Indian government to tackle and restrain noise pollution, and it was made part of Environmental Protection Act 1986. So under this rule, the government categorized territories or industries, commercial, residential areas and noise standards for such categories, and it was specified. And there were also buffer areas which were demarcated around like hospitals, schools, universities and other court premises, which needs to be taken care of. So looking at the Noise Pollution Regulation and Control Rules of 2000, we see that noise pollution regulation control rule of 2000 have been enacted to regulate the level of noise pollution in urban areas and including metropolitan cities from various sources of noise pollution. Looking at the objective of this, the purpose of this is that it makes rules to safeguard to reduce the increasing ambient noise level in public spaces because of the industries, construction activities, generator set, loudspeaker, public address systems, music systems, vehicular horns and other mechanical devices. So in order to have curtail those noise levels, it makes provisions, and it finds it necessary to regulate and control noise producing and generating sources, and the purpose is to maintaining the ambient air quality standard with respect to noise. CPCB provides standards under the provision of Environmental Protection Act 1986. You can see here the gazetteer notification which shows the noise limits for vehicles. Link is also provided for reference purpose. You can see, you see how those for different types of vehicles, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, passengers, cars and other things, and then the noise limit is provided here, and from since when it is applicable for the applicable is mentioned here. You can also see noise limits for airport, daytime, nighttime limitations, definitions and notes for existing and proposed airport infrastructure, It has provision for airport noise mapping as well, like you saw in the other country. And there's also a protocol for measurement also provided, and guidance for development and regional authorities also how to take care of all these concerns. So you can see here for the airport and all the definitions involved here, and the link is also provided to you. So CPCB also provides noise levels for generator sets. It also provides authorities list for implementation of noise rules. So that all is also given here. So the institutional setup also you can see. And then in addition to that, the policy mechanism, like how different areas are taken care of. So in India, we see that CPCB, in association with State Pollution Control Board, has established National Ambient Noise Monitoring Network. So in this, 7 metropolitan cities, namely Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Lucknow, and Mumbai. In these cities, nearly 70 noise monitoring stations are made operational to regularly keep the data and the records. So you can use these data sources also for when you are undertaking AIA process. CPCB has prepared a methodology for formulation of the noise mapping. Then we also see like that was about our country. We also see that there has been intervention in linking noise policy, land use planning, and noise guidance. So we see, from example from England, here we see that how national policy in England links to the land use planning and related noise guidance. So this in this they have taken a very unique approach to avoid having prescribing specific quantities of things, but then rather they have worked out on like working out the toxicology to support the interpretation of significant adverse impact. So they have developed a toxicology where rather than recommending one particular number, they would really look into how of one particular noise, the noise which is created, what would be the adverse impact of that particular noise. So you can see there. And then they have also developed a framework guidance, national planning policy framework, which puts the government's land use planning policies for England and how these are expected to be applied for decision making. So all these framework is also provided here. And this helps in making decisions regarding how to avoid noise um, and how to avoid significant adverse impact of those noise, and how to mitigate and reduce and minimize any other negative impact on health and quality of life. So all this national noise policy and guidance framework provides this. So while you assess this, you might note of some of the terms like no observed effect level, NOEL, where the level below, where you get the levels which are below where there's no detectable effect on the health and quality of life due to the noise. Then you also see LOEL, which is lowest observed adverse effect level. So the level above which adverse effect on human health and quality of life can be detected. So those are identified here, and then you also have a term SOEL, which is significant observed adverse effect level. So the level above which significant adverse effects on health and quality of life can occur, so that you can take care of. So here now, most of the guidance have started avoiding prescribing specific levels, but rather having an approach of assessment which guides what kind of interventions have to be taken, and it allows assessment of any particular development or the ambient environment. And then there are also planning practice guidance, which provides the additional guidance on how planning can manage potential noise impacts of new development, indicating that planning authorities should consider whether or not a significant negative impact is occurring, whether or not adverse effect is occurring or likely to occur, or whether there's a good standard of amenity can be achieved or not. So, all those guidance are provided. So, this is what we saw today. So, summarizing, we looked at the international level legislation guidance, and we looked at the standards and guidance for measuring and assessing noise and vibration. Then we looked at the national noise level policy and guidance in this, and then we also looked at certain changing scenario, how people are addressing it, how countries are addressing their approaches are changing. So, these were our references which we used for today, and you can also look at the suggested watch and read in addition to these what have been provided to you. So, please feel free to ask questions, let us know about any concerns you have. Do share your opinions, experiences and suggestions. Looking forward to interacting and co-learning with you while exploring AIA. Thank you.